All right, guys, welcome to the show. It's Wednesday, November 2nd. I am recording this show from my bed. I'm still in Washington, D.C., so not back in the studio yet. By the way, one of the reasons I'm here is that we're doing live election coverage on Election Day, so everybody definitely check that out. It'll be live streaming on the Breaking Points channel and on the Secular Talk YouTube channel, so stick around for that. I know that's like, it's like a week away or whatever, but you get the deal. Anyway, so a lot of stuff to talk about today. We have Twitter may be imploding. There's some new things I just read that are really eye-opening, that are kind of astonishing. So, I mean, everybody knows Elon overpaid for Twitter, and he's talking about some changes now that we'll get to. But, yeah, you'll see that their current financial situation, really not good. Really not good at all. I also have Jair Bolsonaro didn't say a word for 48 hours before he came out and made a comment after Lula draxed them sklounced. We'll talk about that. We have Joe Biden is finally calling for a windfall profits tax. So that is a good story, and we got much, much more. Anyway, all right, so let's get it started here. This is in Reuters. Twitter will charge $8 for a verified badge, Elon Musk says. More than 80% of Twitter users who took part in a recent poll said they would not pay for a blue tick, while 10% said they were willing to pay $5 a month. So, one of the reasons why he's considering this is because the cash flow situation over at Twitter is really not good. They have a lot of debt. They make nowhere near enough in terms of advertiser revenue, and so he's trying to find like creative ways to make some money for Twitter. And so he floated this idea. Now let me give you the specifics of what he's talking about. The reason I show you this is because of really the second part here. 80% of Twitter users took part in the recent poll, said they would not pay for the blue tick. So even with this idea, he's not going to get a large percentage of people who are going to do it. And so it's not going to raise a lot of money. Honestly, even if a lot of people did do it, it still wouldn't raise that much money. Here's what Elon says specifically. Twitter's current lords and peasants system for who has or doesn't have a blue check mark is bullshit. Power to the people, blue for $8 a month. Now, he's trying to make this like a populist type thing, but the fact of the matter is, even under the system he's proposing, it would kind of be a two-tiered system, right? Because you'd have some people with the blue check mark and some people without, and if you don't have the blue check mark, it's like a two-tier thing. And he goes on to explain how it's exactly that. Price adjusted by country proportionate to purchasing power parity. You will also get, so this is if you pay for the blue check, you will get priority in replies, mentions and search, which is essential to defeat spam and scam, ability to post long video and audio, half as many ads, and paywall bypass for publishers willing to work with us. This will also give Twitter a revenue stream to reward content creators. There will be a secondary tag below the name for someone who is a public figure, which is already the case for politicians. Okay, so basically what he's saying here is, look, anybody can buy a verification badge. Anybody can buy one. But now there's going to be like a secondary verification, which is really, if you think about it, like the real verification. Because the whole idea of Twitter verification is like, if you're a public figure and you're known to some extent, then that opens the door for impersonation. And, impersonation could be kind of defamatory by its nature. If somebody pretends to be you, if you're a well-known person and they start posting incredibly, whatever, bigoted, racist, extreme shit, then that's, sort of defaming your name. And so that's the whole idea behind verification. It's like, you are somebody who, somebody might want to impersonate, and we can't have that, because that opens up all these legal issues. So basically, verification is going to stay the same. The only difference is people can pay for the current verification that exists, which is $8 a month, and you get some perks in terms of how far and wide your stuff gets spread. But, look, for him to... So this first tweet is kind of bullshit if you think about it, because you're still keeping a two-tiered system. This is still very clearly a two-tiered system. And in fact, you're building in like more favoritism for people who will pay for it. Now, again, I think if you get him in a room and you talk to him and nobody else is around, Elon Musk will admit, like, look, I'm just desperately trying to raise revenue because of the current situation that Twitter is in. But in terms of trying to, present this as the current system is bullshit and we're going to, break up this hierarchy. It's like, no, you're making a more rigid hierarchy. Okay, so now here's the little nugget that I wanted to share with you guys. So New York Times wrote an article on Twitter, and this is a passage from that article. Look at this. This is something. Last year, Twitter's interest expense was about $50 million. With the new debt taken on in the deal, that will now balloon to about $1 billion a year. Yet the company's operations last year generated about $630 million in cash flow to meet its financial obligations. These numbers don't check out, bro. These numbers are not looking good. That means that Twitter is generating less money per year than what it owes its lenders. The company also does not appear to have a lot of extra cash on hand. While it had about $6 billion in cash before Mr. Musk's buyout, a large portion of that probably went into the cost of closing the acquisition. That gives Mr. Musk little wiggle room. Mr. Pasquarella said, quote, "They are essentially going to take all the financial resources of the company and just pour it into servicing the debt," he said. Holy cow. So let me break this down into layman's terms for you. Twitter is fucked. Twitter is mega fucked. And the fact of the matter is, when I look at what Elon is saying and doing now, it really strikes me as like he's just sort of throwing shit against the wall and hoping something sticks. Like, that's what it looks like to me. It looks like he is scrambling, coming up with these, like, half-assed ideas, and hoping some of them make sense, hoping some of them will work. But again, even if his $8 idea does come through, he was originally saying 20, and they knocked it down to 8 because Stephen King was like, I'm not fucking paying that. And even if, like, 50% of users did it, which it's not gonna be 50% that do it, you're still nowhere near making up this difference, because there's only about 400,000 verified users in the first place. So, I don't know, man. This doesn't look good. And the other thing that I'm kind of concerned about is that Elon is a very, what's the proper word? Eccentric? Is that the right word? He's a very eccentric billionaire. And he likes to do a lot of wacky things. And he tends to fall in love with his own ideas. And, he very famously said 10 years ago, I'm going to have a man on Mars in 10 years. And now we're on that date. And that indeed did not happen, right? He had the idea of, like, the tunnels underneath Los Angeles or wherever the fuck. And, like, this will solve traffic issues. And, well, what came of that? So he's got these ideas. And most of the time he doesn't really follow through on them. But now, like, he has Twitter. He has to do some stuff to try to make it profitable. And, there aren't that many options available to him. And so what I'm afraid of is he's going to just radically transform the platform and make it, like, ruin what made it interesting in the first place. And that would be bad. That would be very, very bad. The other thing is he's caught in a little bit of a catch-22 because he's all about, he portrays himself as, I'm all about free speech. We need to make this thing as pro-free speech as possible. But advertisers are already telling him, look, if you make this a free-for-all hellscape, if you don't have any content moderation or you significantly roll back content moderation, we don't want to be associated with that, because we've seen what happens when you get rid of the content moderation. You end up like Gab. You end up like Parler. You end up like Truth Social. It just honestly becomes like a right-wing rag. And they don't want that. Advertisers don't want to be associated with and affiliated with an outlet where, for example, there were all these articles, N-word use went up 500% since Elon Musk took over Twitter. So he's kind of caught in a catch-22. Now he's got so much of his own money invested in this that he definitely feels compelled to make it as profitable as he can, if he can make it profitable at all, right? But then on the other hand, he would have to sort of go back on the main thrust of why he said he bought it in the first place, which is, like, totally unfettered free speech. And that's not, like, he can't win, right? Like, there is no winning in that scenario. And, the people who have come to love him, the conservatives who have come to love him, will probably turn on him at some point if he doesn't, really make it a more free speech-like platform. And I already saw earlier today, he said there is going to be no, bulk rolling back of these lifetime Twitter bans until there's a good process to let them back on and determine who really should have been kicked off and who should be allowed. And I already saw Tim Pool earlier today going after him. Basically, like, this is bullshit. Like, Jack told me this 4 years ago, and there's been no, attempt to get back the people who were banned. And look, again, when you get into the details and the specifics, it's not easy to deal with this, right? Because some of the people who were banned from Twitter were banned because they did literal direct threats of violence, right? Or mass harassment campaigns, or mass doxing campaigns. So in other words, some people who were banned should have been banned, and even would have been banned and should have been banned in a scenario where this was like a public utility and government owned, because they're violating literal laws, right? And so how do you determine who was banned for a bullshit reason, who was banned for a good reason, and like sort through all of that in a way that makes sense, right? And how do you appease everybody who has an opinion on free speech and what their standard is, right? So, man, Twitter's in trouble, dog. Twitter is definitely in trouble. This is some wild stuff. Hey, y'all, do me a favor and like and subscribe. It helps out big time in the algorithm. Click the bell as well for notifications when videos drop, and watch that video on screen right now. You know you want to.